How's it going out there, YouTube? My name is Jesse, and I am the curator for the Golden Age. And this time, we're going to be doing a lost hero of the Golden Age of...
the god of thunder, the son of Odin, the almighty Thor!
Not exactly.
What do you mean?
We're kind of covering Thor. The first one we're covering is not Thor, but he has the power of Thor. And the second one, by going by the name of Thor, doesn't have anything to do with Thor.
Then why does he even go by Thor?
Well, remember in the last video where the guy's last name was Hercules?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this guy's last name is Thor.
That sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, they went in a weird direction with the second version of Thor, which came out the very next issue when the other version that was being Thor went off. Same artist on both. So let's go ahead and what they were doing with Thor was kind of weird. They wanted to follow the Pantheon, kind of, and that's where it looked like it was starting in the first version of Thor, which only lasted for 5 issues. And then they went to a completely different direction with their next version of Thor, who flew by using dynamite. I can't say it any better than that. This guy was immune to the blasts of dynamite, but we never talked about him being super durable or anything. And he flew by throwing dynamite behind him, and the explosions would keep him propelled in the air. Yes, it's just as stupid and ridiculous as I'm describing it as it sounds. It really is that ridiculous. I wish that they had done better with Thor, or maybe a couple of more one-shots like they did with Heracles, but they didn't. I just don't think that they knew what to do with him. The modern age version did so much more. I mean, you've seen the you've read the comic books, you've seen the TV shows, you've watched the movies. I mean, there was so much they could have done and didn't. So let's go ahead and see what Fox Publication tried to bring to light, but ultimately failed in both of their concepts. So let's get started on this
Lost Heroes of the Golden Age.
Lost Heroes of the Golden Age with the mighty Thor. Now, if you're familiar with any Norse mythology at all, you know how Thor is portrayed. Thor, Odin's son, and his brother Balder. I mean, if you listen to the Norse mythology, you know about his adventures. He didn't have any 12 labors of Hercules, but he did possess his hammer, and the hammer in his Norse mythologies had more powers than in the modern Marvel comic books. Now, I've covered all 3 of the Thors in the Golden Age, but the 2 I'm going to cover in this video are ones that I've only slightly mentioned. Now, the first Thor that I'm just going over very quickly is I covered in the MLJ month video when I did the Time Traveler. I believe it was Scott Rand. Yeah, Scott Rand. He just seemed to be a just a regular Viking with no powers, just called Thor. He was the last Viking to survive a battle, and they took him with them on his adventures, and he appeared for 3 issues. Now, the other 2 Thors we're going to cover is, I covered them in the Heroes That You Thought You Knew. One of them had powers very similar to the modern age Thor, but this one, Thor grants his powers to a normal human because he feels his power is needed on Earth. And the other one is a completely ridiculous hero, and everything about him is completely it's stupid and unusual. And they keep changing him into each issue. Yeah, changing him vaguely. So let's go ahead and cover Thor, and I'll show you the first issue, and then we'll cover Dynamite Thor, and I'll show you the first issue of both of those. Since I have access to the comics, I have more information on them now. So let's go ahead and cover the first issue of both of these Thors, and they're both under Fox Publications, so you can kind of see what they were doing. Thor, Grant Farwell, first appeared in Weird Comics #1, 1940, published by Fox, created by Wright Lincoln. And here we come to the first page. Thor, God of Thunder. Grant Farwell, an ordinary mortal, is suddenly invested? Really? With the supernatural powers of the ancient god Thor, son of Odin, supreme ruler of Valhalla. Why would he be invested if he was given the powers? That doesn't make any sense. Okay, and after the splash page, we are looking at Valhalla. Thor, God of Thunder, looks upon the world from his lofty castle in Valhalla. No, castle's not in Valhalla. The Valhalla is where they have the honored dead. He's in Asgard. He finds that there is need on Earth for his mighty powers. So he's showing it. He's got these magical powers, and then he's saying this to absolutely no one. And then, after he talks to nobody in particular, we cut to Grant Farwell, who he is taking his girl out to dinner, and then we get a brief explanation of him that he is more of a guy who likes to stay at home, and he has no particular focus or wanting to be heroic in any way. So as he has his, as he's dancing with his girl, Glenda, a suave and sophisticated-looking gentleman approaches to them and asks her to dance. And as she dances with him, she ends up leaving with the dashing gentleman, leaving Grant to feel very dejected. After he goes home and feels like a pitiful fool, Thor shows up to him and says, "My son, I have looked for you I have work for you to do. You will have undreamed of powers." I don't know. It's just a weird way. Okay, so Thor takes him to the castle, and I guess he gets the powers, and I guess he trains them, but there's no determinate amount of time. So, let's see, transforming into Thor's being, Grant surveys the world from Valhalla. It's not in Valhalla! From Valhalla, he sees Glenda surrounded by a group of sinister-looking men who he recognizes as spies. So, he goes back to Earth and wants to go talk some sense into her. And she tells him, these men are worldly romantic. I know what I'm doing. She basically casts him off, not questioning how he found her at all. And then she is kidnapped as they head out to South America because they want to use her to take over some mines. But she doesn't own the mines. I don't see why she has anything to do with it. You will help us find the Andorian mines, which our country will capture. You will pose as a tourist. I don't see why they want to use her. Well, Thor follows them to the other country, and he makes a storm in the air which forces them to land. Yeah, that's a good idea. Put your girlfriend in danger. Is she really your girlfriend anymore? She walked out on you with another guy. Okay, so he rescues Glenda. He carries her to a high cliff where he sees tanks are on the march, and he decides to destroy the tanks because they must have belonged to the bad guys. She takes Glenda to the border of Andoria, and then flies over and changes back into Grant to meet the spies. The spies capture him and tie him up into a mine. Glenda is not content to stay behind the lines, decides that she's going to go investigate. Glenda, Thought she was struck by lightning. One of the spies see her and throws her into the mine shaft. It says roughly he throws her into the shaft. Well, while she's down in the shaft, she starts exploring and she sees Grant. And Grant, how in the world did you get here? Well, Glenda, I decided to have a little adventure, so I followed you. Yeah, no questions, just go with it. And then suddenly, with a tremendous roar, the mine explodes. So, I guess he lets a lightning bolt descend onto the mine. That's really good. Your girlfriend's in there. And then he's suddenly in the air riding the light. It looks like he's riding the lightning bolt. Okay, he starts to dispatch the spies and learns that Glenda is still in the mine because someone heard a scream. So he goes and rescues her. He starts to... Suddenly Thor sees the spies escaping in a tank. And he makes short work of the tank, beats up the spies. That puts an end to their little South American adventure. Now I shall take Glenda back to her home. So I guess he drops her off, and then he goes to Valhalla and starts talking about his adventure. Thor does not reside in Valhalla. He resides in Asgard. I mean, unless you're talking about this being after Ragnarok, where he would probably be in Valhalla, but there's no castles in Valhalla. It's a giant hall where they consume mead and food and talk about it. It's infuriating. Anyways, he tells his adventure, and Thor, who is a separate being in there because Grant only has the powers, he says, "You have earned the right to my name and my magic hammer. They are now yours to keep." And he really does ride a lightning bolt back to Earth, or Midgard, or however they want to call it. Grant, how did you... I'm going to read these last 4 pages. Grant, how did you escape from the mine? I flew out. How did you? I was rescued by the most wonderful, godlike man. You will never be like him. Glenda is astonished at his unconcern. No, too bad. Goodbye. Now, I applauded him for having enough self-respect to walk away from this woman who left him for another man and is now going nuts over this godlike being. But Grant has more important things to think of than the whim of a girl. Read more about Grant Farwell's adventure in the next issue. Now, I applauded him for having enough self-respect, but in the next issue, he wants to go out with her again, and he keeps insisting on going out with her while the entire issue she's saying, "Leave me alone, I don't need you." But by the end of the issue, she is actually asking him out to dinner. Now, they keep changing his outfit every issue, and in the 3rd issue, he is actually part of the military. He gets a promotion and then wounded in action, and then Glenda finds him. I know your secret identity. I know you're Thor. Now, in the 4th and 5th issues, I'm completely astonished by the character change. The hammer doesn't look nearly as impressive in the 4th issue. He is no longer wearing a cape or a helmet. He is just in short shorts and boots. He looks like Hercules with a hammer because he's got the long flowing golden hair. In the 5th issue, his last appearance, no hammer, no cape, no hat. If it wasn't for the fact that they called it Thor and that he was riding a lightning bolt and had Thor's magic gauntlet, I wouldn't even know it was an issue of Thor. And magic gauntlet, I know about Thor's magic hammer. I know about Thor's belt of strength, which enhanced his strength. Can someone please tell me what Norse mythology of Thor's gauntlet? I have never heard of this thing before. I do a lot of mythology videos. I like mythology. I've never heard of this thing. Okay, I'm ranting, but please, someone tell me where Thor's gauntlet comes from. Well, in the last appearance of issue 5, which is his last appearance, Issue 5 is the only one that he does not have the cover feature or featured comic. He doesn't appear on any of the covers. It's his last appearance. He says he will appear in more, but he doesn't, and that's okay because the last issue was not very compelling at all. All right, let's go on to Dynamite Thor. Far more interesting. Okay, and now we will go to Dynamite Thor, who replaced Thor right away in the Weird Comics. Right where Thor ended, Dynamite Thor began. Okay, Dynamite Thor, Peter Thor. Yeah, I know, Peter Thor. First appeared in Weird Comics number 6 in 1940. The original publisher is also Fox. Created by also Wright Lincoln. He did both Thors. So there is no origin story, but what we have here is blasting the rackets to atoms comes Dynamite Thor, the explosive man. In reality, he is Peter Thor, a wealthy mine owner who uses his expert knowledge of high explosives to rid the world of organized crime. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Okay, so we see in Peter Thor's apartment, and it even says that he's listening to how the Dynamite gang is being wrapped up. Now, I'm going to keep in mind, in this issue, he does not fly at all, but it is said that he has the ability to fly throwing dynamite. That won't actually happen until the next issue. In this issue, he does not fly at all. So he hears that the Jones gang, it was the Dead Jones gang, is held up in a house and they're keeping the police at bay. So Dynamite Thor tightropes walks along the power lines. Yes, he is running across the power lines to get to these people. There's my target. A small charge will stop the shooting and give the police, or give me a chance to talk to the police. So he throws a grenade and decides to talk to the police and say that he's there to help. And yes, he's got the short shorts, and we all know how I feel about that. So he tells the cops to break away and that he's going to handle it. And as they leave, he blows off the roof of the house and somehow leaves the rest of the structure intact. Now, they realize that the roof is gone and they escape out the back. As they're trying to get away, they come to a narrow bridge, which Thor blows up. Yeah, property damage. Nice. Let's hope no one needs to use this bridge because it's not operable anymore. So they're trying to get out of the car, and the police get the drop on them, and one of the guy gets away. He's like, that's fast work, Dynamite. Won't you tell us your real name? No, sorry, just Dynamite. We got them all, but we got them all but one. I've got a date to keep with Glenda. Yes, he's dating a Glenda. Okay, he's unconcerned about the one guy who gets away. So, Peter, did you read about this darling Dynamite? He captured the gang single-handedly. Yes, quite a trick, Glenda. Trick, it was a miracle. Well, it's time for the show. So they're going off to the show, and then there's a paperboy shouting exposition. Now, they go see the first part of the show. Now, keep in mind, everything I'm about to tell you is happening at the intermission. So this is going to be a long intermission. So, he says that he must make a phone call. So he leaves the theater and goes over to a taxi cab and takes a taxi to the city gas tank, which the paperboy was crying about. Now, the paneling is done wrong here. They go from little panel to big panel to little panel. That's not how you're supposed to do it. When two small panels are connected to a big one, the two small panels are read before you jump to the big one. He throws an explosion, I guess trying to cut a backdraft, which doesn't work, and so he throws a longer one and it snuffs out the flames. As he peers deeper into the wreckage, he notices a tunnel. So he follows the tunnel down and sees basically an arsenal of weapons. He says, "What's this? Guns and ammunition. Looks like a gangster's arsenal," and realizes the tunnel leads out to the shack that he was dealing with earlier that he blew the roof off of. Now, he sees somebody and grabs him. Now, the paneling is done right here. It's the big panel before the two little pictures are done. That's how you're supposed to do it. You can't just randomly jump around panels. It makes it hard to read. So he grabs the guy and he starts beating him up to try to make him confess. And since he's not superhuman power, we don't have to worry about him killing him. So he admits to doing the job, but he won't admit to who hired him. So he grabs the guy and he tight ropes along the power lines again and takes this guy to the police station. This is completely stupid. Anyways, he drops the guy off for the cops and says you can interrogate him outside police headquarters. That car, this is the one the Dead Jones gang used, and someone's driving it away. So as this guy is trying to get away, Dynamite Thor blows up the city water tower. Oh yeah, more property damage. It's a good thing he doesn't give them our identity. Okay, so the water dumps onto the car and it stalls the motor for a minute. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Water pouring on top of a car is not going to stall the motor because then we couldn't drive them in the rain. Maybe they're trying to say it was just the amount of the water. Okay, well, the car starts again and Thor's chasing him down. And this guy stops and radios the boss. And we see this guy in a partial home not too far from the car. Looks like this guy is in a ritzy manner. And he's like, you bumbling fool, meet me at 5th and Market in 5 minutes. Hurry, boss. And Peter Thor catches up to the car and jumps onto the back of it. And what a... Well, this is great. A free ride into the country. So they say that they drive into some deserted quarry, and then they notice that Thor is there. They shoot at him and he lets go. He throws dynamite to blow up a part of the mountain quarry. Hey, your pal is dead, and I'm taking you back to headquarters. And then we're miraculously back at the police headquarters. Here's your real gangster, Captain. Why, you're John Holmes, the utility magnate. You're a respected man of the community. Why were you associating with the Dead Jones gangs of hoodlums? Were you the head of the gang? Yes. I might as well confess. I wanted to bankrupt that rival utility company. Hey, that fella Dynamite. I saw him put the fire out. And Dynamite say there's a reward coming to you. And he doesn't want the reward. He takes off. And he gets back to the theater and it says, back in time for the second act. Now, everything that I just read to you happened within the intermission. How long was the intermission? Okay, so he makes it back to his girl and she says, why, Peter, you must have called up your sweetheart. Nope, she's right here. Follow Dynamite Thor's thrilling adventures in the next issue. Now, he's only in one more appearance of Weird Comics before he gets transferred to a couple of issues in Blue Beetle Comics where he's not a cover or a featured story. Blue Beetle is. He changes a little bit in that. He's still flying around. He apparently has a neutron shield that he only mentions once. And the second appearance in the Blue Beetle comic books, for some ungodly reason, he has a cape. I don't know why. And in the very last issue, they were just writing another issue just to get him out. It's a 5-page story. He looks like he's fighting Japanese soldiers. It's a quick story. Doesn't really do anything for his character. Says he'll appear in the next issue. And we never see him again. And that is all of the Golden Age Thor's appearance. There was an appearance of a Thor, one-part comic in Charleston Comic Books, but that appeared in the late 50s, done by Steve Ditko, who is the co-creator of Spider-Man. But that was a one-time issue, and that's Silver Age, not Golden Age. So if anybody wants to see that, that can be a request. But these are the Golden Age appearances of Thor. Regular Thor and Dynamite Thor. I hope you liked this video. I hope that you weren't too terribly disappointed by what they did. Interesting, but not exciting, is my opinion. So I have a couple of more requests of metaphysical characters that we're gonna do. So, before we forget, this was kind of a request by him where I was leading in the first place. So let's get that out of the way. And we got some more coming up. Until next time, I'll be seeing you.